Hello and welcome to another edition of Fide's podcast. My name is Jerry Serino and I'm your host, and I'm here with talent on loan from Rush. Hey, I want to ask all of you real quick to please subscribe to my YouTube page or Rumble page. I keep getting disciplinary action by YouTube for lots of things, and they have deleted a couple of my pages, so I'm always restarting. So if you want to hit like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And also subscribe and ask others to subscribe to my podcast and all the different podcast apps that are out there. And would love for you to go to fidespodcast.com as well. That's fidespodcast.com. Check it out. Please communicate with me there. You can get all my episodes there. The theme of my show lately for the past, well, really, all along has been knowledge, faith, and truth. Right? That's my sort of tagline and what I like to focus on. And I've really had a passion in the last couple of years for what is going on in our universities. I have 3 college students myself. I see and know and hear what's going on. My father, a state senator here in Ohio, is the author of Senate Bill 83 here in Ohio that we're trying to get passed, that is dealing with discrimination, essentially, indoctrination, and treatment of conservatives, in eliminating or demeaning sort of free speech, specifically against conservatives. So this is a passion for me because I know what's going on in our universities, and the treatment is really awful. It's un-American, regardless of which side of the political aisle you're on. It is bad. It is really bad. So my guest today caught my eye because of this issue. My guests are Gloria and Stevie Giorno. They are here to share their story, and it's a combined story because they both get involved here, and how Stevie was treated simply for an Instagram post, a very patriotic Instagram post, and how he was treated by a Christian college. So I want to welcome both Gloria and Stevie to the show. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, based upon all this, you wrote a book, and I'm going to share, Gloria. I'm going to share the name of the book. It's Outcast. It's called Outcast: How the Radical Left Tried to Destroy a Young Conservative, who is Stevie, your son. So let's start with sort of the beginning. So here you are at a Christian college just south of Nashville, Tennessee, and you simply on the 4th of July make a post. Stevie, tell us what this horrible post was that garnered all this controversy. We'll talk about what ensued after that, but let's start with, for everyone listening, right, you're maybe expecting some horrible thing. Let's hear what that was.
Well, absolutely. Well, first, thank you very much for having us on. It's great to be with you. And yes, I posted on the 4th of July in 2020. It was a picture of myself in front of the White House a picture my parents took a few years prior. And my caption was proud to be an American and thankful to those who had sacrificed and those who had given their lives so that we may have freedoms and liberties that our forefathers intended for us on this day in 1776.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so you heard that right. If you're listening here, you heard what he said. Pretty normal, pretty standard thing on the 4th of July, thanking our veterans, those that gave up their lives for our freedoms. So then take us quickly to the backlash, right? So here you are, and by the way, I think it's important to know, and I'll let you explain it. You were student body president, correct? And give us that background. Your involvement in the school itself.
I was. So prior to 2020, it didn't really matter if you were a conservative or a liberal. Politics didn't really matter. Belmont's a small school, just about 8,000 students when I was there, and you were friends with everyone. And I was in student government for a year and a half leading up to me becoming student body president. And I was actually elected in January of 2020 with the endorsements from both college Republicans and college Democrats. It's a nonpartisan position. Student government should not be a political job. You should be doing what's best for the students on campus. but I ended up winning with 97% of the vote in January. Some of my biggest supporters would end up being my biggest critics when I posted that I was thankful to be from this country on the 4th of July. And really what it came down to was that I was proud to be an American, and I refused to endorse the Black Lives Matter organization that they were all demanding that I support. I am never going to support a group like that. My cousin was a police officer in Chicago who was shot and killed serving, and I'm never going to support a group that's anti-police. And my grandparents escaped from the communist country, Yugoslavia, where my mother actually lived for part of her life. And so I was never going to support an organization that says capitalism is evil, the police are evil, and the foundation of our country is awful, because this is the greatest country ever. We've done more for people across the world and in our own country than anyone else has ever done ever. So I'm not going to shy away from saying that I love this country and I'm proud to be from here, and I'm going to let everyone know that.
Yeah, those are great words. Everything you said is 100% correct about this country and about, Black Lives Matter. Of course, Black lives do matter. They always matter, especially in the womb. Unfortunately, the left doesn't believe that. But Black Lives Matter is a horrible organization. They are anti-God, anti-family. They're radical Marxists. So it is not, wrong to criticize them. And it's also, this is a free country. So even if they disagree with your criticism, but your post wasn't even that. It was simply being proud of this country. So I want to go to Gloria on something you had talked about, because I think this is really, really relevant. And that is, Gloria, your experience living in Yugoslavia. A lot of people will say, they love, especially on college campuses, right? You'll find them wearing Che Guevara t-shirts, and they love communism and all this kind of stuff, and they don't really truly understand it. You have the perspective of having lived in that regime. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Sure. I lived in communist Yugoslavia. I went to school in Zagreb when I was 6 years old, so it was first grade. And every day on my way to a U.S. embassy school, I had a backpack with 1,000 US dollars. Now, this is 1972. That's a lot of money. And I knew how to use that money to get out of the country in case of a civil war. Because yes, you're living in a communist country and you're thinking everything is free. It's not. You need to be able to get out. The police are not there to protect you. The police are strictly there to make sure that nobody is going to go against the communist regime and Josip Broz Tito. There is no freedom. You cannot speak out on religion. You cannot worship as you please. You need to know how to get out of that country. So I, as a 6-year-old, was able to know how to get out of that country in case of civil war. But we have 18-year-olds here in this country who can't tell you if they're a boy or a girl. So we have fallen so fast, so far, that it's going to be so difficult to bring back conservatism and the American agenda. So to these young people, and I do meet with a lot of young people who talk about how amazing communism could be because everything is free. I talk about 2 lions, one living in Wyoming free and the other lion at the zoo. The lion doesn't see the cage because it's nice and glass and plexiglass nowadays, so you don't see the cage, but you're caged. That lion has all his needs met for free, no charge. The lion in Wyoming is the one that's truly free. He fends for himself if he's hurt. He gets his own food. He finds his own water. He needs his own shelter. That lion is free, and that is America. It is not being caged. But when you live in a communist country, you're told how to think, what to think, and what you see on television, on the news, is exactly what the government wants you to know. That is it. And that is kind of like what we're seeing now on mainstream media. It is completely what we're seeing on mainstream media. And unfortunately, as you mentioned, you're being silenced as well, as are we.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is absolutely correct. We are becoming, close to as bad as any, as communist Yugoslavia or any other country that we, reference as a place that is not free and suspends freedom such as religion and freedom of speech and imprisons its, people that are speak out against them. I mean, that's happening now. Unfortunately, the left, especially on college campus, they don't know a lot of this stuff because they're not told, and they're told the opposite, sadly, by their professors. So then let's go back to, okay, you make this statement on Instagram, so it's July, so you're not in school yet. You tell us, Stevie, about the backlash. I know you were threatened. I'll let you explain it all. And then Gloria, if you can go in to tell us what you did to try to ensure Stevie's safety once he got back to campus. So let's start with Stevie.
Well, within 24 hours, there was a change.org petition created to impeach me as student government president, saying that I was covertly racist because I was celebrating a racist holiday, being the 4th of July, because these students see the 4th of July as being a racist holiday, which still to this day I don't understand. It's just very unfortunate that these kids are paying so much or going into student debt so much to go to such a great school, and they think that this school and everything in this country is awful. Within a few days following the change.org petition, it had 300 or 400 signatures. On my personal Instagram post where I posted that picture, there were hundreds of comments, some of them saying, "Go kill yourself, you're a racist, you're an awful person, you're terrible." It was really unfortunate. I was in a fraternity at the time, the only fraternity at Belmont, and my own fraternity brothers were turning against me in the comments, and privately they were texting me saying, "Hey, if you don't endorse the Black Lives Matter organization and apologize, we're going to do whatever it takes to destroy your career. We're going to come after you." There were students saying if they saw me on campus, they were going to attack me. It was a really unfortunate experience, but the worst experience of all was on the day of the presidential debate, the final presidential debate between President Trump and Joe Biden. I would go and get a sweet tea every morning. Being from Tennessee, I love my sweet tea. So I'd go to a restaurant and pick it up in the morning, get some breakfast. And there was a female student who worked there, who attended Belmont, who knew who I was and was not a big fan. And I got a screenshot sent to me that day from a friend of mine who was in the college Democrats, but a normal human being before anything else. And that screenshot had a quote from this girl saying that she has been putting gross stuff in my drinks for the past few weeks because I was a terrible Republican and because I was a Trump supporting, conservative who loved my country. And we ended up sending those screenshots into the university to try to have them take some action to punish her. And guess what the school did? Worse than nothing, they accepted her into Belmont Law School a few weeks after we had turned her in for committing battery. That is why we have, all these doctors and lawyers in DC and the bureaucrats who told us during COVID that, our jobs weren't essential, even though that's how we're trying to put food on the table and pay for bills. The bureaucrats decided that, hey, what we say is more important than what you all need. And it reminds me of all the stories my grandfather told me of when he lived in communism, and the state would give you your job, you'd do that job for the rest of your life, and if you didn't want to do it, they were going to kill you.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So, I mean, essentially, you could say that she was, potentially poisoning you, right? Because she doesn't know if you're allergic to something, and you could have an allergic reaction. I mean, that's criminal. That she was doing, and yet nothing happens. They accept her into the law school. It's really horribly sad. It's horribly sad. And then so obviously, Gloria, this is happening to your son. I could only imagine, and I've said on my show, because I've had lots of moms who are in similar situations. You just don't mess with moms. I will. You do not mess with moms. Trust me. No one wants to mess with my wife. If someone does something to my kids, they don't have to worry about me as much, right? They're safer with me than with her. She's not going to have anything to do with it. But so tell me what you did. I mean, this is obviously very scary.
Well, when the whole thing started with Stevie's first initial post on his personal Instagram, I made a phone call to Bob Fisher, who was then the president of Belmont University. And I was told by his assistant that they were aware of some drama going around about Stevie's post and that Mr. Fisher would be calling me back. I waited and waited and waited, and as you can expect, he never called me back. So a few days later, an attorney called me, and he asked me if I was going to be suing Belmont. I had no idea why I would be suing Belmont. I mean, they had done nothing wrong except they have real names. They're provided to them, and no one is doing anything to take any action to keep my son safe because COVID was going to be 2 weeks and we were going back to school the following month. So that was my question to him. What is Belmont going to do to keep Stevie safe? I mean, I have students telling my son, who are using their real name, telling my son that he should be dead. Is that a threat? Is that asking him to commit suicide? How do I interpret that as a mom? And my husband and I we were very troubled by all this. This is a Christian university. I dread to think what goes on at public universities, but I can actually share it with you as well. But we wanted to know ultimately how was Stevie going to be safe. So no one reached out to us. So we reached out to campus security. Campus security did a Zoom call with us, and I asked for Stevie's safety. That's my concern. Well, no one wanted to do anything. Finally, a veteran who's a police officer stepped up. He works for Belmont, stepped up and said, I will escort him. You can't have his car on campus, but I will escort him. You can deliver him to the security office and I will walk him from class to class. Okay, we don't live, if Stevie lived at home, we don't live on top of a campus, but he parked 3 blocks away from campus, and he would have a friend or I would go and pick him up and drop him off at campus security, where he would be escorted by a police officer for his safety. He had to be escorted. Now, the liberals whose names are out there, who we've provided, I mean, Stevie said he provided, he touched upon that. We provided every documentation, screenshots, emails, texts, even transcripts and Zoom calls from his fraternity. They were basically blackmailing him. And all the real names are on there. Belmont did nothing. The only thing they did, there was this one police officer who escorted Stevie from class to class. But Stevie was discouraged from attending classes in person. They told him to do as much Zoom as possible, and he could not have any student government meetings. Well, we're hosting a debate. Belmont is hosting a debate. All eyes are on Belmont in the entire world for a third debate. And my son, who's student body president, is getting calls from media all over the country asking him to make a comment about the debate and how students are reacting to having the final debate on campus. Well, he once again goes back to Belmont and says, how do I address these? I mean, there's a media kit for all this, right? Well, our son is left out. He was supposed to be an integral part of a debate. That's when he was sworn in by Bob Fisher in January of 2020. Well, instead, they eliminated him from the debate. So you were right when you said, don't mess with a mom. You're right. Hell hath no fury like a mother pissed off is what I say. And you will read in the book, it details how Stevie did get back into the debate because, it's just not right. What happened to my son, I don't care what side you sit on, should never happen to any child at any schools, any level. And I know it happens in grade school and high school too. It should not happen anywhere. But if we as conservatives do not fight back now, we will lose. We are done next year if we do not start speaking out. And that's why I wrote Outcast. It's, you have a lot of people, you said, who you've spoken with who have been through this, but how many of them are out there speaking every day? Stevie and I are speaking everywhere throughout the country. And we have a book that gives you every fact, every detail, every fact, it's a picture book, Stevie calls it, because I've backed it up with every piece of documentation. And I think that's important. We have a lot of people who come out and say stuff, but show me the proof. And that's exactly what I did in Outcast. I showed people the proof, and I gave parents basically a book is handed to them. This is what is happening to your conservative child in college. Do not let it go on. Stop the funding. Stop giving universities money. Talk to the donors. Talk to people are conservatives. Maybe we need to stop sending our children to universities. They're all infiltrated at this point, every one of them. Maybe we just need to stop so that we no longer are slaves to the radical left.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to reiterate that that this is a private Christian school. And so many of the others that are like you, Stevie, and you, Gloria, experiencing this that I've had on my show, that I've talked to, whether it's on the issue of abortion or whatever stand they take, a lot of these are Christian colleges that this is happening in. And I, like you said, I don't know that they're any better than the public universities out there. To be perfectly frank with you, it's just sad that they're call themselves Christian universities, yet they behave this way. I mean, there's so much wrong with that. Number one, they don't allow free speech. Number two, they don't side with your son and simply say, hey, look, what he said is perfectly sounds good to me, right? Right. But even if they wanted to stay out of that, they have an obligation to protect him and to hold people accountable that were threatening his life. Although it sounds like to me that even the barista poisoning your coffee, her protest was probably mostly peaceful, right? And mostly peaceful text messages and Instagram comments. I'm sure that they were mostly peaceful. So, but they, they have an obligation to keep you safe, and you had to even fight. So for those that are watching, I have the title of the book on the screen here for those just listening. It's called Outcast: How the Radical Left Tried to Destroy a Young Conservative. Thank you for the description of it, Gloria, because I think it's really important, because you're explaining how it gives a detail, the details on how to combat this and how to fight this. Because I mean, I know we haven't had any controversy like this for my sons who are at public universities here in Ohio, but they sit through stuff that they have to hold their tongue in class. And some of the stuff that's being said by professors and other students is absolutely insane. And yet they're going, Dad, what do I do? What do I do? What do I say? You, Stevie, stood up and, for yourself. And that is really exceptional and really fantastic. So what do you, people who want to know all the ins and outs need to get the book. So please go do that. What are you doing now, Stevie?
Currently, I serve as the chairman for the Tennessee Young Republicans. So with our team, I identify young Republicans. We start new chapters throughout the counties in Tennessee, and we try to have it as a big, sort of like a big Rotary Club that does some political work. We just had our annual fundraising dinner where we had 320 people in attendance. We had the former UN ambassador, Kelly Craft from Kentucky, who was our keynote speaker, and we raised about $43,000. So it's really been exciting to be around so many young, like-minded people who are excited to get involved for 2024. Also, we are both running as delegates for President Trump to the RNC in the state of Tennessee. We're running at large throughout the state of Tennessee. So would love to have anyone who's living in Tennessee's vote, because we're going to go and support the president, because he's been there to support us, and we need him back to fix the absolute disaster that is going on in Washington, D.C. that's making it impossible for young people to, go to college and not have debt, to buy a house, to have a family, and have the American dream, which is being taken away right now by the radical left's wish list agenda items.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So I want to sort of slightly deviate and get both of your thoughts on a couple things. And first one is that by the way you were treated, Stevie, and we just all heard all the things that were done and said, these people actually believe that you are Hitler, right? Even with your simple post, which was pretty, I mean, it was pretty normal. I mean, I shouldn't say it was pretty normal. It was a very normal post that people have been saying or posting forever. They really feel like you are Hitler, and therefore having feelings of wanting to kill you or destroy your life or hurt you. They feel like they're justified. Am I wrong in thinking that?
That's absolutely right. There were some ringleaders, whether it was at the school or in my fraternity, more specifically, there were about 3 or 4 in my fraternity. And what they did is they went around to all the other brothers in my fraternity, and they said, hey, you need to be with us on this or else we're going to come after you too. And it reminded me of, Mussolini and the black shirts walking through the streets of Rome saying, hey, you're with us or we're going to kill you, when Mussolini took over and became the dictator of Italy before World War II. And that's exactly what was going on at Belmont. There were some very radical, loud people that went around and said, either you're with us or we're going to put you in the same boat as him. Where fortunately I was, I had already had a job lined up after college with people that supported me and supported what we know to be right. And they encouraged me to fight back. But so many people who are trying to get a job in business or in healthcare or in music, which Belmont is known for, they're not trying to have a change.org petition against them, where I welcomed it because I wanted people to see how foolish and how dangerous our colleges are becoming compared to 20, 30 years ago. Even 10 years ago, you would have never had something like this happen. But now our country has become so indoctrinated with young people that unfortunately, those people believed I was the most evil person on Belmont's campus because I said I was thankful to live in this country. Yet I don't see any of those students who hate this country going to North Korea or going to China or going to Canada like so many said they were going to do if President Trump won in 2016. And so many are saying they're going to do in 2024 if he wins.
Mm-hmm. So, Gloria, just curious as to what your thoughts are on that, as far as people that are people that have students in school. Do you think that they support their kids and their behaviors and their attitudes? Do you think they're exacerbating it by egging them on or teaching them this nonsense? Or do you think that these kids are being truly indoctrinated sort of on their own?
I think these kids are truly being indoctrinated. I think that parents, you gave an example of your children in college, and with all due respect, I think it is frightening to have your child speak out. But as conservatives, if we don't teach our children to speak out, we won't be in existence anymore. So when I have been speaking, Stevie and I have both been speaking everywhere. We speak together, we speak separately, we do all kinds of things. But I think it's important that our children do speak out. And yeah, we're not going to agree with every professor, but college is supposed to be a place where you can go and disagree. It's supposed to be where everyone comes together to learn from each other. So I think it's important that conservatives do speak out and speak the truth. And it's okay for your teacher to give you, we were fine with Stevie leaving Belmont. We were fine with him getting a C because the teacher didn't like him, because he didn't agree with what Stevie said. We were fine with that because it is more important that a conservative Christian message get out there than it is for Stevie to be a straight A student. So I advise parents to teach their children to stand strong, and they will find when Stevie graduated, we didn't know if he was going to get booed. We didn't know what was going to happen at graduation. However, you'd be surprised by the amount of applause and cheers he got, because there are more of us than there are of them at the end of the day. And we need to keep that in mind. So we need to encourage our children to speak the truth, speak what we have taught them. And we also need to stop sending our children to universities that will not listen to what we want taught. We cannot allow Democrats to rewrite history anymore. We are done with that. History needs to be taught the way it was. You said earlier about communism and people getting incarcerated. Yes, my Uncle Mike was one of those people. He was put in jail for speaking out against Josip Tito, and he was to be hanged. And fortunately, his people from his town of Mostad and his family were able to get him out of that prison. He escaped. He escaped to France to find freedom. But that's going to be us. Today, it is President Trump. Tomorrow, it is you and I. We need to come together as a party. We need to be sure that all of our needs are met. We need to be independent. We need to fight for, pro-life. We need to fight for the Second Amendment. We need to fight for freedom of speech, especially on every level of school. Our children need to be empowered, and I do believe that starts in the home. Yesterday's BLM protester on campus is today's pro-Hamas protester.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sad statement. We learned nothing from 2020, nothing. So we need to do better. We need better branding. We need better messaging. We need to get young people to join the young Republican groups at school. I realize a lot of schools don't even have them, or a Turning Point chapter. A lot of schools don't allow them, but there's always a county YR group that you can find and you can join. But please encourage your children to speak out. And yeah, they're students, they're adults, but they're still, I understand, they're still your children, but they have to speak out. And good grades are not everything, but speaking out for the right thing to do and be is what God wants for all of us.
Absolutely. Can't say it any better. I'm going to leave it at that because I can't really top what you just said. And people can get educated on these issues. I think there's some degree of fear of speaking up because you're not sure what to say, or you don't have all the knowledge about, whatever the issue might be. Understandably so. They're young. But even us old, people my age and your age and so on, they may not be into politics as much. But if you want to get educated on all of these topics, your book, my show, and other shows like mine are where people need to go to educate themselves so that they can feel confident in speaking up, and then have the courage, as you said, because you're absolutely right. We have to speak up, because our lack of speaking up is probably been the conservative side's biggest downfall, in my opinion. So really fantastic conversation. We can go on and on, but for those that want to know, in greater depth, the story and the situation with Gloria and Stevie, again, please get their book, Outcast: How the Radical Left Tried to Destroy a Young Conservative. And I presume they can get that on Amazon and anywhere that they would buy books, correct? That's the best place.
Amazon is probably the best place. Barnes and Noble has labeled me a radical, so they won't carry my book.
Loving your country is a radical.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, only in America, I guess. No, it's not true. Actually, it's only in Marxist countries is that the case. So, well, listen, hey, Gloria and Stevie, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. I wish you the best. Please keep fighting for what you're fighting for. If you're listening and you want to have Gloria and or Stevie on your show, or come speak at an event of yours, reach out to them. I mean, we need their story to be told and to be heard, because there are a lot of us out there that are struggling with what is going on in college campus and what it's doing to our children. Some have not been able to escape the indoctrination. I've spoken to many, and their kids are totally indoctrinated and are miserable because of what has happened. So we need to fight this. So Gloria and Stevie, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, my pleasure. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of Fide's podcast. Please check out all my podcasts on all the different podcast apps, on YouTube, on Rumble, and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on rightamericamedia.com and on WHK Radio /podcasts.com as well. So thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.